Fire Mike Tomlin. Deion is the guy in Dallas. And hire Rex Ryan back for the New York Jets. That's the headlines. That's what the people want. But Paige, Dimakos, what really makes a good head coach?
Oh, man, that's such a big question. But there are a lot of things that make a really good head coach. But most importantly, it's about being a great leader. It's not about being a play caller. It's not about just being an offensive genius. It's not about just being good on one side. It's about building culture. It's about setting the tone. And it's about being a great leader. And when we look up at the four guys that we chose to put up here, these are culture, tone, setting guys. That's what these guys do. And I had a great example of this when I covered the Arizona Cardinals with Bruce Arians. Bruce Arians is known as the quarterback whisperer, right? He's an unbelievable, no risk it, no biscuit, offensive genius. But the best thing about BA is that he was an unbelievable leader. He was honest. He was a great communicator, and his players always knew where they stood with him. And I think that's one of the things that goes misunderstood with people behind the scenes. That's a Harbaugh trait. That's an Andy Reid trait. That's all these guys up here. They're honest and fair with their players because this is a business at the end of the day.
It's respect, right?
It's a respect thing, but these are grown men that are hitting other grown men for a living. I know that it's a business, but it's still different. It feels different. The locker room makes it feel like a family. And so being able to balance that is very difficult, and these guys do a really good job of it. So that's one thing I wanted to hammer home is when you talk about being a great coach, a great leader, you got to set the tone, you got to build culture, and at the end of the day, you got to stand up for your guys because you got an owner that a lot of times is trying to fight you and everybody else. And Jim Harbaugh, we know that man's fought the Yorks. We know guys that have stood up. Tomlin tells the media, we do it our way. You have to have that. You have to have conviction, Keith, in what you want as a coach, because otherwise, how can people follow you, right?
No, 100%. You hit on the culture part of it, right? Because I think that's important. The other side is that it's the adversity, right?
Yes.
You better pick somebody because you know that you're going to hit an adverse situation. So you better pick somebody that can stand in front of grown-ass men, right, when situation is going bad, and they can lead those guys, right? Because we know you're not going to go 17-0 and run through the playoffs and win. So they're going to be moments where they're going to be injuries. They're going to be disappointments, right? They're going to be situations where the media is coming down on people, right? They're going to be opportunities where you may make a bad decision as a head coach, right? Maybe going for it on fourth down. But you have to have the humility to go walk back in that locker room after you disappointed 53 grown men, plus all of the coaches, be able to look people in the eyes and they say, you know what, we showing back up to work Monday because we believe in you. And that's the part I think that gets missed, right? It's because we go after these guys, they're the brainiacs, right, that they're awesome play callers.
Wizards.
And what the hell does that get from anything, right? Like, because and I always say this, that the reason why you got the head coaching job it's not the same duties, right?
Yeah.
So you being a good play caller, that's not the same duties anymore.
No.
9 times out of 10, you're not even calling plays anymore.
No.
So if you want to be a good head coach, you better start working on being a good goddamn leader. You better start working on not wearing your emotions on your sleeve. You better start working on understanding that there's 53 guys in here that have all different backgrounds, and I have to know how to relate to all of these guys. You better start understanding that the owners are going to put me in some bad situations, and I better understand how to be able to matriculate, navigate, and get these guys to believe in me, and that you're more of a manager than you are I get to just coach in one position.
Yeah, and it's just what it is, right? And I think a good example of what you're talking about, the play calling versus the actual coaching and leading the team. Like I said, Bruce was an offensive genius, wizard, loved calling plays, called plays most of the time he was here in Arizona. As he transitions to his second stint in Tampa Bay as a head coach, he gets Tom Brady, right? They get Tom Brady, and everybody thinks, oh, this is going to be so easy, right? Because it's Tom. No, it's not. Tom's been in one system his entire life. This was a totally new system. They had to change everything about this. It was better for them. Bruce didn't call the plays. They had Byron Leftwich calling plays, working with Tom, and he needed to lead that team because that team had so much attention on it in a way that had never happened before. In the COVID year, all this going on, there were so many distractions that football season. He needed to be in control of everything else, keep all the noise. And oh, by the way, they were not very good halfway through the season and then got hot at the end and won the damn Super Bowl. And you know how they did that? By being led by a man, a grown-ass man who could stand up and be accountable. And that's what Dan Campbell in a loss is accountable. Tomlin is accountable. Harbaugh is accountable. Andy Reid accountable. That matters. Everybody makes mistakes, but you have to stand up and be accountable in front of your entire team because you're the face.
Yeah,
and that's how it goes.
I just had an epiphany, right? And I think it's so
I saw
funny.
it happen on your face while I was talking.
Because what you were talking about, right? But it's so funny when you think about the positioning, right? Where are most coordinators? They're up in the box.
Yeah.
Away, right? Mm-hmm. You get to just operate in your
bubble.
In your confined bubble, in your situation. Where are the head coaches? On the sideline. You have the spotlight on you all the time. And that's the difference. So you better be prepared to the stuff that you preach. You got to live that out, man. You know, when you talk about being tough and being consistent, showing up to work every single day, you better do it. You talk about being a good person, you better show that you're a good person, right? Yeah. You talk about being a good leader, you talk about holding people accountable, right? You have to do it because the spotlight's on you. Yeah. And I think the positioning, if fans want to know what's the difference between being a coordinator and being a head coach, and it was just in the picture, is that the coordinators are up in the box, the head coach are down in the spotlight.
And nobody has a cheat sheet for you.
No, they don't. Because
there's not a play call sheet for when you're in the moment and you got to call a timeout and you got to know what's going on and you got to know the momentum and know your team and know your guys. There's no cheat sheet for that. There's none. And that's the big difference. It's very easy to sit and listen, play calling is hard. Okay, I'm not going to take anything away.
It's just different jobs.
But it's a different set of expectations and it's a different role, quite frankly. Dan Campbell isn't a play caller, but he's a damn good leader and a good man. And there are people, have you heard Amon-Ra St. Brown talk about Dan Campbell?
Right.
Do you think he would talk about Ben Johnson the same? I'm going to tell you he would not. Ben Johnson's a great play caller. I have no idea what Ben Johnson is like as a leader.
As a leader. You have no idea.
And nobody does. He may be great, but we don't know because he's not doing that. He's not leading that team. Dan Campbell is. And there's a big difference. And there's a place for everybody. And I think that's the part that I get most frustrated by is you're hiring a staff. It's not just about hiring the head coach. It's about hiring the head coach and people that support him, that are not going to backstab him, that are his guys, that are loyal guys. Because I watched this happen in Chicago. They brought back Matt Eberflus, okay? But they made him fire all his guys. You cut his legs from underneath him. It was failed from the start. Because everybody in there is trying to jockey for a job, and none of them have a relationship with him. It's not set up well for success. And that's why the young coordinator thing has failed a lot. Because when Cliff Kingsbury got that job, Cliff didn't have no contacts. What was the staff? He didn't know enough people. He hadn't worked in the league yet and built that time. Experience matters. Your relationships matter. The ability to lead matters. And the ability to let people do their job matters. And it's hard to be a head coach, no matter the sport. But in the NFL, you have to be a damn good leader. You do. And that's what matters more. That's the thing that matters the most.
I think the threshold for being a head coach, right, in with NFL fans, the play calling is one thing, but you have to sit at home and ask yourself, would I follow this guy, right? Would I run through a brick wall for this guy? If I hear him talking in a podium, could he motivate me? And if the answer is no, then you have a problem on your hands, right?
Yeah, could he motivate me to go hit somebody?
Yeah.
We're not talking about going and coding on a computer, guys. We're talking about going and hitting somebody at full force as hard as you can over and over again. You got to be able to motivate people. I've heard great speeches and I've heard terrible speeches. Mike McDaniel talks and I'm like, yeah, this ain't for me. And checks notes, it's working out just like how I thought it would.
100%. Well, there's two names. And one of them, Mike Tomlin, right? And he's established, but there's a lot of conversation around him if he should stay in Pittsburgh. But I want to talk about the guy on the left, prime time. He is linked to the Dallas Cowboys for the head coaching position.
Sure is.
So the question goes from can he be considered to he is considered to now I want to know, do you think it will be a successful situation with Deion Sanders in Dallas?
Keith, first and foremost, I want to ask you, who predicted that Deion Sanders would be good in Dallas?
You did. You know, and the thing is this, that you say some wild things, right? And I sit there and I'm like, this is off the rail, right? I do not think this is going to happen. I have a lot of questions. And you said this back in the summer. And there were so many things that had to happen, right? The Colorado Buffaloes had to be a good football team. The Dallas Cowboys had to be bad. And I'm like, I don't know if this is going to line. But you said this before everybody on ESPN anybody on Fox, anybody on CBS, you were the first person that sat there and said, I could see Deion Sanders being pursued by the Dallas Cowboys.
And you want to know why I saw that? Because I know Jerry Jones.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the thing that the fans need to realize. Your owners control everything. Period. End stop.
Especially him.
Especially Jerry Jones. Okay? And Jerry loves the show. Jerry loves the limelight. Jerry's getting old. And Jerry's not very good at relinquishing control. Why I think this could happen is because I think that Jerry Jones is enamored with the idea of how much bigger the brand of the Dallas Cowboys could be. He saw what he did in Colorado.
So do you think it will work?
Do I think it will work is a different question. Do I think it will work? Here's why it could work.
Okay, go ahead.
Because Jerry needs to relinquish power for the Cowboys to be great. I firmly believe he is the number one thing standing in the way of the Cowboys winning another Super Bowl. And until he either passes away and the team is taken on by his kids, which could end up being worse, we don't know. Steven and Charlotte have their own issues. We don't know what they would do running the team. But if it's not that, right, with Jerry, then I think the Deion situation, I look at this overall and I go, okay, Deion can lead this team, right? Mm-hmm. Because he knows how to handle Jerry. He does. And he knows how to handle Jerry because there's a clip, and I wish I had it right here. I wish I had it right here. He's in a pinstripe suit. And he's sitting next to Jerry. And Jerry Jones goes like this. And he's like the happiest, giddiest guy on earth. He's like, I'm so happy I got primetime. It's 1992 or whatever year he went there. And he's so happy. He's so happy. And you see that moment, you're like, that's why it's going to happen again. I saw it. I saw that, and I was like, nah, this is going to happen again. And it's going to happen, and Deion is going to put Jerry in his place. He's going to put Jerry in his place because Deion can. Deion can. He's the only person that can.
He can't. Let me tell you why. I told you. It's Rose. That situation that you're talking about.
He was the player. Correct.
That's my new shiny toy. Mm-hmm. That's my toy. That's not my superior.
What if he wins early?
Who, Deion?
Yeah.
It still doesn't matter. Is that because other coaches have won? Mike McCarthy has won. He hasn't relinquished power. Jason Garrett was winning at certain moments. He didn't relinquish power.
No.
Bill Parcells was winning, and he didn't relinquish power.
Here's where win a big playoff game. Win 2 playoff games. Take you to an NFC championship game. You think if he takes that team to an NFC championship game the next year, that Prime's not going to have a say?
He's going to have a say in certain elements. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's still going to have the control that he wants because Jerry is not forgetting that I won the Super Bowl. That's how he feel. He feel like I made the right decisions, whether people want to give it to Jimmy Johnson or not, right? He feels like he made the right decisions. Mm-hmm. I got Jimmy up out of here. I hired the next head coach, Barry Switzer, who can get the job done. So I know what it looks like. You've never did it before. Oh, talking about great decisions? Who the one that brought you here? Yeah. I did, right? Yeah. And so I think that's the problem with Jerry. I think if you clear the decks and let Deion get in there and give him a shot, yes, I think he can do it. I think he has an opportunity to do it. Do I think he'll get it done with the Dallas Cowboys? I'm out on the idea of Jerry Jones with that situation just because I say it. It's 2 type A personalities. Yeah. They will clash. I always talk about it, right? We 2 friends, right? They sit there and they're like, oh, yeah, we best friends. Then one thing happened. They clash, and that friendship is done, right? like it's 2 people like, oh, yeah, y'all just alike. That works. Until it doesn't work anymore. And I think that's what happened. Deion is a big personality, which there's no problem with that, right? But I actually think there's other franchises that's better suited for him. Like you say, the New England Patriots. I could see Robert Kraft not caring what Deion does because, Robert, I don't want to be in the spotlight. Yeah. Jerry wants to be the sole reason why the Dallas Cowboys win the Super Bowl. It's not that I want to hire the coach and I get to be in the cut, sit back, and say that I made the right decision. He wants, when he wins the Super Bowl, everybody to pan to him and say, Jerry, you did a really good job. 100%. He wants more credit than the players. He wants the most credit out of anybody.
I'm glad you said that, though, because you know what Deion's pretty good at? What? Pandering to an audience. He knows how to that part of it. I can see. I like literally the moment you said that, I'm like, no, I can see Deion sitting at a press conference, putting his arm around Jerry. This is the greatest owner in all of sports.
Yeah.
He knows how to juice him up.
But it always starts good, right?
Yeah, of
Tell me
course,
when the last time we seen a bad coaching press conference? Well, outside of Adam Gase, right? When
that was horrible. Nick Sirianni, horrible.
Nick Sirianni. But usually it's good because you know why we happy? Because I hired you and 100%. You just gave me a big contract. Of course I'm happy with you. I just made millions.
Okay, so it's a Monday night football game. They kick off the season, and they beat the Eagles, right, on Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
And I see Deion being calculated enough to allow Jerry to be the man in that moment. Because Deion will still be the man too, but he will sauce Jerry up enough to think that he's the man when Deion knows, really, at the end of the day, he going to get the credit. And that's the game you got to play. And I think Deion's smart enough and savvy enough to play it. I do.
If Deion is willing to play that game, then I give this a 10% shot at succeeding. Right now, I got only? 0.
0%.
And I think Deion can coach in the NFL. I think he can be a good coach in the NFL.
Yeah.
With the Cowboys, let me tell you something. This thing is waiting to combust, and it will be bad. It will be all-time bad because you have to add in 2 people that you mentioned, Stephen Jones and the sister, right?
Charlotte.
That's going to play a factor, too.
They would be very jealous, for sure. I could see that happening. I could see that being a big part of it. But I will say, I don't know that Steven's very involved / very good at anything. Sorry, Steven. And Charlotte runs the marketing. Yeah. Charlotte's very good.
I can see her staying out the way. Just like Jeannie Buss,
yeah,
right?
like very much so. Yep. Very much so. But I think the last thing I'll say on the Prime stuff is if there's ever a shot, Cowboys fans, while Jerry's alive, to get your team back to a Super Bowl, your only shot is getting Deion. Because I don't think there's anybody on earth who can put that man in his place. And I think I agree. While I said all these positive things, I definitely I think it would go left. Because I don't think Jerry can actually check himself. But I think there's a 5 to 10% chance.
You right
totally.
there with me. You don't think that,
I just want it to happen so bad.
No, it's so. The thing is this.
Bad.
You could separate both of them. I feel like it will happen. Right? Mm-hmm. I feel really good about that. Like, with betting, man, I'm putting a lot of money on it.
Yeah, that's why I saw it happening.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, will it be successful is the question. But I want to talk about this. A guy that's already won a Super Bowl. Yeah. Honestly, these franchises are the exact opposite of
Could
each
not
other,
be
right?
more different.
More different, right?
Yep.
One team, obviously with the Pittsburgh Steelers, about grit, blue collar, tough, winning championships. We don't need to win the headlines, right? We win the games. When we win a Super Bowl, we'll get the headlines. But Mike Tomlin, he's been there for, close to 15 years now. And seems like Pittsburgh Steelers fans, they want him out. I want to ask, what is your opinion? Does Mike Tomlin need to move on for himself out of Pittsburgh?
I'd like to see Mike T move on for himself, honestly. And I think it's because the Steelers have gotten into this place I call quarterback purgatory. And it's where you win too many games to get yourself down at the bottom to tank. He's not going to tank. We know that. And he's not going to coach a team that's below 500, historically speaking. And he's going to coach you to this. He's going to out-coach the roster, which is what he's done for the last, has he been in the league for 18 years? And the last 8, they've made the playoffs 5 of the last 8, but they've lost in the first round, right? And that's because Mike's a great coach.
Yeah.
But for him, and quite frankly, I think for Pittsburgh, either he's got to change how he's doing things with the coordinators and he's got to relinquish some control and be open-minded to innovation on the offensive side of the ball, or things are not going to change. And I think at some point, like, this is not enough for the Steelers. This team, this version of them is not going to beat Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, like Joe Burrow. Like, you got to fix this. And Pittsburgh is an organization that wins a lot, Keith. And Mike T is one of the best coaches of all time. But I think for both sides, it is time to move on. I would love to see him somewhere else. I would love to see him get a new opportunity. And I would love to see the Steelers actually have to bottom out. Like, that's what happens.
So, yeah, I'm fundamentally against that, though. I don't never want to sign up to...
I understand you're not tanking on purpose. It's the organization needs to hit the reset button.
Yeah, but can't you hit it without bottoming out? Like, because I look at your divisional rival, like the
Sure.
Baltimore Ravens, right? They successfully made transitions from Trent Dilfer, Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, that era, Joe Flacco, right? And then you go and get a Lamar Jackson, and you've never been bad, right? Because I look at some of these NFL teams who are horrible, like the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that bad, right? I only get 17 games. I don't want to lose 15 of those and have 15 miserable Sundays, right? I want to win as many games as I possibly could because that's the enjoyment part of it. But I look at Mike Tomlin, and this is my message for Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Y'all can go ahead and get rid of Mike Tomlin. That would be one of the worst decisions that y'all have made, point blank, period. Y'all don't have a Mike Tomlin problem. Y'all don't have a Russell Wilson problem. Y'all have a roster problem that y'all haven't addressed in years. The wide receiver core, I want y'all to do an exercise for me. Take y'all wide receiver core and rank them amongst the other 32 NFL teams and tell me what a Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver core.
It's not high.
Take the offensive line. Tell me what is the offensive line rank amongst the other 32 teams. Take the running back positions and take RB1 and RB2 and rank them. You're getting out of your roster.
He's out coaching. That's what
he's out coaching them. Yep. So your team that you put together for the last 5 years is a team that makes it to the playoffs and get bounced in the first round.
100%.
It's not a situation where you look at the Detroit Lions, right, and they lose the game and you're saying, man, they're a disappointment. They didn't make it as far as they should have. They hit the ceiling. Look at this roster. George Pickens is a good football player. What does he rank in the wide receiver ones across the entire NFL? Yeah. That's the question that you need to ask yourself, right? And I think about the years, think about back in the day, right? When the Steelers had Antonio Brown, when they had Emmanuel Sanders, when they had Mike Wallace, when they came up with Martavius Bryant out anywhere, when they had Hines Ward. The Steelers historically always had good wide receiver cores.
Yeah, but you know who was calling plays a lot of that time?
Who?
Bruce Arians. There's a part of this that, like, and I'm with you. Steeler fans will, let me be clear. If you lose Mike T, good luck.
Yeah.
Because there's no guarantee you're going to get somebody better.
No.
The part that needs to change is for this to get better, because can you and I agree that this is not what they're doing right now? This is not acceptable for, you can't just accept that you're going to make the playoffs and lose in the first round. At a certain point, you got to get to the next level.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I think what's unacceptable is continue to putting together the same roster.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
I think that Mike Tomlin has a hand, right, in building the roster.
He does.
But the Pittsburgh Steelers are also one of those franchises that have a very strong personnel room. And let's be completely honest, like, you've just missed. Yeah, right? Like you've just missed, and you've walked into this season thinking that, hey, we're really good. No, you're above average team that will make it to the first round of the playoffs and get bounced.
So I have a question for you. Are they drafting, though, for a version of football that's not being played anymore?
So this is the interesting part with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and this is what I'm trying to figure out. Because historically, I would say if you'd have asked me to have this conversation with you 3 years ago, right?
Yep.
I'd have said you know what the Steelers are really good at doing? Finding dominant or rough wide receivers that go late in the draft, right? Sure. Antonio Brown was late. I can't remember what Mike Wallace, Martavius, like all of those guys that I named were wide receivers that they kind of just pulled off the tree deep into the draft. They haven't been able to do that as of recent, right? And they've tried it with different guys, but it's not working, and you're swinging and you're missing. And I think the problem is they're not going after these big-time names.
So what's the common theme amongst that, though? Those receivers all had Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah.
That's the common. The thing for them is that the post-Ben Roethlisberger era.
And that's the other part. They haven't gotten a quarterback. But I'm going to take this season in a vacuum. Russell Wilson has showed flashes that he's a fully capable quarterback.
100%.
When they lost against the Ravens, those guys weren't getting open. Like, let's be honest, George Pickens had a bad game against the Ravens. Yeah. He didn't play like a wide receiver
and
1-2.
He was hurt down the stretch for most of those games when they were losing games at the end of the season, and he's their only option.
Thank you. And so I think that goes to my point, right, is that I get it, like in the past years, I mean, you can't roll out Mason Rudolph and think you're about to do anything, right? Like, that's not going to work. But this year I thought Russell Wilson was an upgrade at quarterback, and I think it highlighted that we don't have the skill positions. Najee Harris was not who you thought Najee Harris was going to be when you drafted him out of Alabama, and he has yet to be that version. You thought Najee Harris was going to be Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley, and he hasn't been either
not even close.
Yeah, he hasn't been close to that. So we'll see, right? And I think it's to be determined, but like you said, Mike Tomlin, would I be happy to see him go? Yes, would I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are making the worst decision of their franchise? Yes.
I want Mike T to go for Mike.
For Mike, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm like, one, you're not appreciated. Like, Steeler fans, you have no idea what it's like to be a Bears fan. Let me just tell you, okay?
No
Y'all are
like
so damn spoiled. You've had 3 coaches in like
50 years.
Yeah, it's like, as an organization, fundamentally, you've done most things right. And Mike T's been coaching for 18 years, and y'all have not you've missed the playoffs, 3 times or something in his whole, it's outrageous. You're so spoiled. And I'm not saying, listen, I get it. You deserve to go win a Super Bowl, but just be careful what you wish for.
Yep, 100%.
Be careful what you wish for, because trust me, it ain't so pretty on the other side, okay? It's not so pretty on the other side. But, Keith, we have a list that we need to get into, okay? Because we've been talking about coaches, and we sat down and put some criteria together on the available coaching jobs that maybe Mike Tomlin could come to. Just saying. I would really like a trade happening for the Chicago Bears to come over to Chicago. But we looked at the current roster. We looked at their draft picks. We looked at the current situation with their owner, cap situation, overall, just, the whole situation as a whole and what it entails, the media market. How do you have to deal with this? All those things matter, because let me tell you, as somebody who grew up in Chicago, the media market in Chicago is not the media market in Jacksonville. Okay? It requires 2 different things from a head coach. It just does. It really does.
It is.
Totally different animal. So let's start with the Chicago Bears. Do you want me to start it? I'm gonna let you kick this off. And
so let's start it, right? We ranked them from best jobs to worst jobs, right? Of the 6. And the Chicago Bears is a damn good job. You're talking about a passionate fan base.
What'd you say, Pat?
I said the Chicago Bears is a damn good job and a damn good opportunity, right? Because you look at it, you're talking about a passionate fan base. You're talking about you have a young quarterback on a rookie contract. You're talking about you winning, address the weapon situation. You have a good defensive structure, right? So I look at that, and I think they have cap space to be able to go address the situation again. So I look at the Chicago Bears, and I'm saying, hey, you have all of the key fundamentals to where if I'm a head coach and I take this job, I can make a run for 5 to 10 years. If I do it the right way, right, and do what I'm supposed to do here, I don't have to worry about my family packing any bags in 2 years. I should be here for the next 10 years. I could raise my kids here because I'm going to be successful, and this is a job that's going to last me 10 years.
Listen, I obviously am a little biased here, but I'm also very critical of the team, and I'm very critical of ownership.
Yep.
And I know behind the scenes there's a lot to deal with. But as far as ownership goes, there's meddling, Virginia McCaskey, and then there's meddling like Jerry Jones. Okay?
Right.
As far as the scale goes, you're not even in the vicinity, right?
No.
You may it's obnoxious, but it's a gnat in comparison to a hive of bees attacking you all the time, which is what it is to be with Jerry Jones. Caleb Williams, roster, cap flexibility, rookie contract, and it's Chicago. That's why you want to go there. It's pretty simple for me. That I get it. I understand that the Bears situation can be difficult from a media market perspective, but the gap in the Bears and the Jets right now, oh my God. My God. It's ridiculous. So this is one of those things where I finally feel like the Bears is a lucrative job. I finally feel, and we'll get to what coach I want to get there after we talk through this. But yeah, I believe the Bears is a great job, mostly because of Caleb Williams, Keith. That's the number one reason.
If you don't get the head coach that you want, if you're Chicago Bears front office, you failed. Because
100%.
This is an attractive job, so you should be able to do that. But let's talk about the big star, the Dallas Cowboys. And the Cowboys at number 3, I fought to put them at 1. The reason I fought to put them at 1 is simple. Everybody wants to be a star.
And why they're not number 1 is because Dak Prescott's getting paid $89 million next year. Just want to be clear on that.
Dak Prescott is a good quarterback. But no, so you look at it and you say number 3. The issue is this. You said the cap space, and that's true. You got so much cap space tied up in 2 guys, right? You don't have a lot of flexibility.
And you haven't even signed Micah yet.
And the problem is this, that you're the head coach. You don't have all the power to make roster decisions from drafting, right? So I'm counting on people to draft well that haven't drafted well in the past, right? So to be completely honest, why I'm saying this is a good job, it's Dallas. You put me in prime time 12 out of the 17 weeks. I get to wear the nice colors. I get to live in Frisco.
This man is wild.
That's why I'm taking the Dallas Cowboys job, right? It has nothing to do.
That was not a part of the qualifications that we had.
I went with my own thing. Sometimes you got to go off the beaten path, right? Okay. That's why I went with Dallas Cowboys at the number 3. I'm taking that job, right?
No, it's because of Dak.
Yeah.
That's why. really. In all seriousness.
That he's a good NFL quarterback.
He's a good NFL quarterback, and that's more that we can say about the other situations that we're looking at.
Yeah.
Because all these situations have bad cap, bad roster, bad, like there's all issues, all bad owner, bad this,
don't know.
all of it.
Yep.
But Dak, and again, coming off an injury, but you still have the bones of a really good team, I think. And with some relinquishing of control, hopefully, to Deion Sanders, Dallas could be on the right path. Or a trade of Dak Prescott and drafting Shedeur Sanders. One of the two. I think you're in a really good situation. But the opposite of that situation, the opposite of the Bears situation, okay?
Good.
Is this situation. Is the worst situation. I can't imagine taking the Jets job. I'm going to be honest, Keith.
No.
I know there's only 32 jobs, but it's really hard to get the stink of what this job is going to be.
Yeah, because there's a phrase, right? And when you work, obviously, even in my time at LSU, right, you start to understand the business, right, and what it requires, and you know, being hired, being fired, things like that, right? And you start to understand that every job is not a good job, right?
No.
There's sometimes you need to stay put and avoid certain situations because the truth of the matter is the New York Jets have showed you, their ownership has showed you, they'll fire your ass in a year anyway, right? So you might as well just get your round trip ticket. Don't get a one-way, right?
Yeah.
Get a round trip because you got to come back home
100%.
very soon. And you look at everything going on. You don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to return. The search situation for the general manager and
Can we talk about that for a moment?
I don't even know what to call it.
You guys hired media people to run your search firm as a third party to hire your general manager.
I think it's worse than that because
that's what it is.
You hired a general manager
who
you fired to find your next general manager. I don't know what's more insane than that.
Just bring
him back.
Just bring him back and bring Rex Ryan back and bring the glory days back.
That's what happened, right? Like it all of that is aligning. They're interviewing all of these people, but in my gut, what it's telling me is all of that stuff is for PR and everything 100%. Else. Rex Ryan gonna be back, the head coach of the New York Jets.
To be fair to Rex, that's the best that they've been.
Yeah.
Was under Rex.
Yep,
that was
100%.
AFC Championship game, Mark Sanchez, bunt fumble, all that stuff. Like, that's the unfortunate part is that's what it's known for. But they were in AFC Championship games. The New York Jets were playing in AFC Championship games. That's insane to think about. They were so much better than they are now. And I think that's because Rex can put Woody in his place. Mm-hmm. Rex is a tough dude.
Yeah.
He does not mess around.
No, and I think the fans going to buy into him being there a couple years, right?
But I don't know who else would take that job.
No, and I don't, to be completely honest, unless you have probably minimal shots at getting a head coaching job, right? Like where you don't feel like, hey, this opportunity is never going to come back. Like if you're not confident, right? If you feel like what I did to potentially get hired will never happen again, that's the only reason why you take this job.
Yeah,
but
it's a bad job.
We got some coaching candidates, right?
We sure do.
The best of the best of what we feel is out there.
Yep.
Want to talk about some of these guys, and I'm gonna start with this guy, and I'm gonna toss it to you, Pete Carroll.
Yep.
And I know exactly where you want him. Talk about it.
I want him to go to Chicago because, man, the Chicago Bears need a culture change.
Mm-hmm.
The Chicago Bears need a culture change, and this is a guy who's won at USC. He's won in Seattle. He's created a player-first, young culture. If you know Pete, as old as he is, the energy that Pete Carroll has is infectious. Yep. He is West Coast in the right way for Caleb to understand even though he's not an offensive genius, he's the right guy for Caleb. Yeah. He's the right guy to take Caleb, to get him to believe in himself. He's a motivator. He's a culture guy. And the Bears need a guy that can rally this team and this organization. And I think it's like the easiest layup. Like, I don't understand why the Bears are interviewing a single other person. Hire Pete Carroll. He is the right fit. And if the Bears don't do it, somebody else will. And they'd be stupid not to because he's a damn good coach and he did not want to stop coaching, okay? He did not want to stop coaching. That's been reported. It's been out there. And he wants to get back in. And you know what is better than having a good motivator? Having a good motivator who's also hungry to prove a point to somebody. Mm-hmm. And that's where Pete Carroll is right now. That's where Pete Carroll is. And that's why, I just want him in Chicago so bad, Keith.
Yeah, no, that would be my number one spot for Pete Carroll. And then the second one, if I was him, I would be like, it's kind of cold in Chicago. You know where I go? Las Vegas, right? I'm a little older. Let me enjoy myself in Vegas on the Strip.
I don't want to envision him anywhere else.
Let's go to the next guy, though. Brian Flores, and there's a lot to be said about Brian Flores. I would say this. He's probably one of the more controversial guys, right? Head coaching opportunities. We know the dysfunction that happened in Miami and him suing the league and everything. But him getting another opportunity to be a head coach, I'll say this. I think it's deserving. Yeah. And I think the situation in Miami, there's two sides to every story. Mm-hmm. Did he handle everything correctly? No, but you look at what Miami is now, it looks like they could probably use a tough-ass head coach, right, that they could go on the road and win some football games. It looked like everything that they are, he was trying to prevent them from not being, just being a finesse football team that had no grit, that had no toughness, that had no willingness to continue to fight, because the Miami Dolphins, they win a certain way. It's almost like it's the Big 12, right, of the NFL, where we're going to score a lot of points, but when the rubber meets the road, we don't know if we're going to fold or not. I think Brian Flores was trying to build a football team where he knew at the end of the day, this team was not going to fold. Now, the quarterback stuff, I think he's grown enough. He was with Mike Tomlin. Now he's with Kevin O'Connell. Yep. I think he's made good relationships. He'll be able to pull some people from Minnesota. He'll be able to pull some people from Pittsburgh and put together a good staff. I think this is definitely a guy that deserves another opportunity to be a head coach.
Yeah, he was humbled too, Keith. And I think that helps a lot when you're talking about just overall getting another opportunity to get back at it. He's a great defensive mind. He's a culture guy. And this is football, guys. Yep. I'm sorry. At the end of the day, toughness matters. And I've heard and seen, and I get it. I get it that Tua, maybe this wasn't the right fit for him. But this isn't college, guys.
Yeah, it's different.
You're a professional. You're expected to be able to come in and not have to be coddled. Like, the fact that when I listened to that, I was like, God, I would hate if this was my quarterback. Because it was like, you need to be coddled when you're in the NFL? Like, there's one thing to have somebody believe in you. I get that. And maybe that wasn't the right leadership approach for him. But at a certain point, you're a grown-ass man. This is not a child. I'm not trying to teach you and develop you. You're expected to be developed enough to be able to handle yourself. And I think he really got the raw side of the deal of that Tua stuff. And it was one-sided. He got up in front of everybody, and he didn't really say a whole lot. So I hope for Flo's sake, I hope he gets another opportunity. I hope he learned from his mistakes, right? I hope he learned from the stuff with Tua, and I hope he gets an opportunity to be able to coach. And if the Bears don't get Pete Carroll, I hope it's him. And like the third guy here.
Yeah, let's talk about somebody who got a raw deal.
Yeah, the raw deal of all raw deals, okay? This is a guy I spent a lot of time with when the Senior Bowl had the Lions full staff and the Jets full staff, because they used to do it like that.
A couple years ago,
Yeah, and it was an unbelievable opportunity to get time around those guys. Saleh is very similar to Dan Campbell. Has a lot of the same characteristics, traits, as far as his leadership style, as far as how he treats, very player first. Yes, he's a defensive guy, but when was the defense bad under his tutelage?
Yeah.
Did the defense get better or worse when they fired him, Keith? Worse.
Worse.
That's interesting. Did everything get better or worse when they let Aaron Rodgers run the entire team?
Worse.
Checks notes. Much, much worse. He got a horrible raw deal. He really did.
And this is what happened. People made decisions that he was not a part of, right? Yeah. Or he ultimately didn't have a final say on.
Of course.
And then when those decisions went bad, they decided to blame him, right? He's not responsible for signing Hassan Reddick. That's ownership in the GM. He's not responsible for trading for Devontae Adams earlier so he can be cohesive with Aaron Rodgers. He's not responsible for Aaron Rodgers doing Netflix documentaries and dropping them during the season, right? He's not responsible for that.
No.
And then y'all sat there and it didn't go well, and you say, oh, you know who's the problem? The problem is Robert Saleh. If I was him, I would be trying to sue for defamation, right? This was not my fault. And you've seen the wheels completely come off of this 100%. Thing, even after he left. So instead of him being the problem, you had to sit there and think, was he the glue that was actually keeping this thing together?
100%.
Because that's what it seemed like. I
think it's totally fair to say. He was keeping it together. He was keeping them organized.
Dealing with the ridiculous stuff in the media.
Yeah.
Like my quarterback is saying something with the Aaron Rodgers with the snap count, right? Like, hey, if our line can't do it, then why are you still doing it?
And that's
because that's what you want to do.
Yeah, and the problem is when you have when the owner's in your back pocket, because that's what it was. Let's be honest. When you're going over your head, and not just over your head, 2 times over your head, GM and owner, going direct line, that's a problem. You cannot have your quarterback doing things like the Pat McAfee show every Tuesday, causing issues and headlines for him on a Wednesday. Yeah. It was ridiculous. It made no sense. It was like, I would hate to have been Robert Saleh. So I really hope Saleh's a culture guy. All the things we talked about up at the top of the show. He's a culture guy. He's a guy that's player focused. He's been through a very bad situation. He's dealt with two of the more powerful ownership group, the York family in San Francisco and the New York Jets with the Johnsons. Totally different markets, too. He's been in California. He's been in New York. He's gotten totally different experiences, and I think that gives him a very unique perspective when he goes into this offseason. And hopefully I think he gets another opportunity, at least as a DC. But yeah, I would love to see him as a head coach again.
Yeah, I think that comes. And he'll be another guy that if I was the Las Vegas Raiders, I would be seriously considering, right? Being able to rebuild. He's been through the tough stuff and things like that. But you said headlines, Paige Dimakos. And I knew I'm let you rock with this. We about to have some fun. So we pulled up. What do we pull up? I'll let you introduce it.
Okay. This is, to end the show today, we're going to revisit the worst takes of the 2024 NFL season. And let's kick things off with one of my all-time favorites. Why the Jets' Aaron Rodgers will win the Super Bowl. Did they make the playoffs, Keith?
Nope.
Did they win, were they above 500?
Nope.
Did Aaron Rodgers play good football this year?
Nope.
Okay. So not only did they not do any of the things that I just mentioned, but they were not sniffing a Super Bowl.
No, guess what? They were worse. They were worse with Aaron Rodgers than they were with Zach Wilson.
Correct. That is correct. And somehow, some way, we got to October, and they were already talking about Mexico. That's not good.
1, 2, 3 Cancun.
It was very, very bad. Let's go to the second one here. Oh, this is one that's near and dear to our hearts.
Yep.
Not paying, this is the embodiment of not paying running backs. Keith, what do we think about not paying running backs?
It's the most ridiculous thing out there. A guy that's capable of doing this. Hurdling guys backwards, who is not like this is his first year being good. Saquon showed us since he's been in the league that I'm a damn good football player, right?
Of course.
It was the ridiculous don't pay running back situation. And we look in the NFL now, right, and the teams that are excelling and doing well all have good running backs.
Top 5 rushing teams are all made the postseason.
Yep.
All 3 guys mentioned here, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, all had good situations. Just out of curiosity, is Saquon Barkley an MVP candidate, Keith, or not?
Yep, he is.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Matt D on Twitter. Okay, this is one I got a lot of problems with. The disrespect shown to Joe Burrow in this graphic here is not going to be tolerated. Okay? The NFL.com did a list of 2024 quarterbacks. They've listed 1 to 32 going into the year. And C.J. Stroud was number 4, Keith. He was number 4.
Yeah, so you run
number 4.
You get into this problem when they give quarterbacks too much credit, right? We always say that like the winning stat, right, shouldn't be a quarterback stat.
Correct.
The Houston Texans were winning. But if you actually look at his stats, they were not immaculate stats. And you have to put stuff in context. You had a good year for a rookie.
Correct.
That does not mean you threw for 35 touchdowns and you had an all-pro year. So the fact that he's sitting above my guy, Joe Shiesty, who's been to a Super Bowl, who's knocked off Patrick Mahomes, who's thrown for 5,000 yards, who's thrown for 40 touchdowns, who's put a team on his back, who has bad ownership, who hasn't had his wide receivers, and he's done all of that, and then you put a guy who had 1 year of rookie in front of him. That was ridiculous, the amount of things that they were saying. If you could start any NFL franchise with a quarterback, who would I start with? And C.J. Stroud, and let me not see this. C.J. Stroud is a young quarterback that's growing. But it is ridiculous to put him over the likes of Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. Like, what are we doing?
And that's the part. This is not anti-CJ Stroud. This is anti the stupid media, okay? Why? This is so reactionary.
No, it is.
It's so ridiculous to think that Joe Shiesty is below CJ Stroud in any list. And, oh, by the way, checks notes. What did Joe Burrow do this year? I don't know. Put up the best year of his entire career.
Yep,
the entire career, and pretty sure if he was playing with the Texans, they would have probably be a Super Bowl team.
Oh yeah.
Just so we're checking notes. Okay, Keith, I'm gonna let you take this one because listen, you told me in the summer the Cowboys had a horrible roster. You told me that, and every time I turned on the TV, I had to hear about the damn Cowboys. So this is your take.
Yeah, and this is ridiculous, and I wish that people in the media, all the big time people, they actually watch the film and evaluate the rosters. Because if you actually evaluated the rosters, you would know that this is not a statement to make. The Cowboys have issues. They have interior defensive line issues they've never addressed. They have linebacker issues they never addressed. Their best cornerback was coming off a torn ACL. They have an average safety position. They have a young offensive line where they're still trying to figure out positions. They don't have a true premier running back. They only have one wide receiver. They have issues at every single position except for edge rusher and quarterback. That's it. But still in all, we're going to say, hey, the Dallas Cowboys, they win 2 games. They can be Super Bowl champs. I don't want to hear that this offseason. I don't want to see it tweeted. I don't want the thought put out until the Dallas Cowboys make wholesale roster changes, which you don't believe they can because of the cap situation.
Nope.
I don't want to hear the Dallas Cowboys in the Super Bowl.
Jerry Jones is really, really good at manufacturing narratives because, man, they belonged nowhere near this. Let's finish up with my favorite one. Unmitigated disaster, Stephen A. Smith says. A flat-out Bryce Young, maybe the biggest bust in NFL history. How's it looking now, Stephen?
Thank you.
How's it looking now? This young man was put into one of the worst situations in the NFL that I have seen since I've been covering the NFL. And fast forward to now, where we saw Bryce Young playing such good football, he turned around and Steph Curry'd a 3-point shot as he threw a touchdown pass. That's how much confidence he still had at the end of after dealing with all the BS he dealt with.
Yep.
100% being benched, and he still has no weapons. Yeah. He still doesn't have a good team. He still doesn't. I don't even know if he has a good coach, Keith.
Right.
We don't know. And he's still got an idiot for an owner. So, Stephen A., I will ask you to please put some respect on Bryce Young's name because this take was atrocious then, and it's way worse now. It's way worse now.
I agree 100%. And to your point with Bryce Young, yeah, he entered the NFL in one of the worst situations we ever seen for a rookie quarterback. And then the next year, he had the second worst situation we've ever seen.
100%.
They told us, they did a very good job with the headlines telling us, how much improved this Carolina Panthers roster is. But when you actually look at it, it's still the Adam Thielen running around there. He's making plays to a 35-year-old wide receiver, right? Xavier Legette dropping passes. That was the Philadelphia game, I think.
Yep.
That wasn't a Bryce Young issue. You walk into Philly and you walk away with a win. That's turning around a season. So,
drafted a running back who wasn't going to play until October with the torn ACL, comes back, plays one game, tears the same ACL. Like, I just... Doing everything to win with your young quarterback is really not that hard, organizations.
It's not that hard.
Please call Keith Sanchez. He's got great ideas on personnel. You can call me. I'm his agent, Paige Dimakos, and we will help you get over the hump because really it's not very hard.
Yep, there we go. Well, there you have it. Draft Club, baby. We are the agents. We build rosters. We have our opinions. We talk shows. I'm Keith Sanchez. That's Paige Dimakos. Draft Club, players only.